Ideally, when we are doing science, when we're doing research, we should be doing it in a way that is public. And by public, what I mean is that as the researchers, we are going to make information about the study available to others. In other words, hopefully to the public at large. This actually is something that I think is a little bit of an issue, which is that research reports are often much more available to professors at universities or to other people, other researchers. And if you want to get them, sometimes that costs you some money, and quite a lot of money to purchase them from the journals in which they're published, unless they're a bit older or they're in a journal that provides them for free. So, ideally these are available to everyone. In reality, there are some issues with getting access to them. And actually, I should mention that as a student at NAU, one of the best things about being a student or a teacher at a large university is that the libraries have purchased access to pretty much every journal out there. So you can get research on essentially everything while you're a student. And I hope that you learn to appreciate that and take advantage of that. But there's this ideal in science that we make it public, that we make the information about our study available to other people. The most common way in which that is done would be where we would publish, like I was just mentioning. We would publish a research report in a particular kind of journal. Science journals are quite different from regular magazines. They look similar in certain ways, but they're quite different. The biggest way in which they're different is that the reports, before they're published, they undergo a process called peer review. So these are peer-reviewed journal articles. And the term peer, in everyday language, we're talking about someone who is your equal, someone who's sort of in the same group, maybe the same age group. In this context, is very similar, but what we're talking about are other people who are probably doing research in the same area. So if you are publishing a study in social psychology, maybe something to do with obedience, then you are going to be reviewed. Your work is going to be reviewed by peers who are also experts in social psychology and probably even doing work on researching obedience. And now, when we say that the thing is reviewed by your peers, usually what this means is it's more like it means that it's attacked by a school of vicious piranhas who are trying to rip your study apart. And I say that jokingly, but really the idea is that if your study is high quality, if you did everything right, if your research methods are solid and the conclusions you're drawing are justified by what you found, and everything's good, then no matter how much we try to find flaws in it and rip it apart, it should withstand that attack. And so the idea is, although it may not feel very good for it to undergo this peer review process, because you're going to get a lot of critiques, a lot of criticisms, even though that may not feel great, the idea is that your peers, your fellow scientists, are doing you a favor by really trying to temper your study. Now, sometimes it doesn't get into the journal, and you have to go back and redo your research or add on to your research or address some significant problems and then try to come back and publish again. And so the idea of things being public, the idea is that this makes it possible to do a number of different things. Like I was just saying, you can, through peer review, and also just after it's published even. The criticisms don't end there. But through peer review and through seeing it out there publicly, other scientists can come and they can evaluate it or criticize it or critique what you did. And you'll get some really you'll get some really intense debates sometimes with an article that is, or a journal article that is published. And then in the same journal, they'll often get other scientists. Yeah, it made it through the peer review process, but they'll get other scientists who still, nevertheless, vehemently disagree with the conclusions of the study. And so you'll get a very lively debate out there in the open, in public, where everyone can see it and everyone can potentially join in. The other main reason that I'd like you to know for why we want things to be public is that this allows you to replicate. You can do what's called a replication study. The idea is we don't want to put too much confidence in any one study. Even if it makes it through the peer review process, there could still be problems with it. Maybe there's some mistake that you didn't catch that nobody else caught when they were reviewing it, and now it's out there and it's published, and you're basically inadvertently lying to people. I mean, not lying, but you're presenting something that is not true, and we want to be able to catch that. Or maybe you are deliberately lying. Maybe you're actually engaging in fraud, in which case we definitely want to catch that. So you've crafted this beautiful sounding study. It flies through peer review because it all sounds perfect, but you just made it up. And this has, unfortunately, happened from time to time, and scientists have been caught doing this and lost their careers over it. But one of the best ways to check whether something is really true is not to rely on a single study. A single study is a good reason to say, that's interesting. It looks like there's something there. Let's check it out. But if we really want to be confident that something is true about the world, we need to replicate that. And the idea is some other scientist in some other lab who doesn't have your biases, who is maybe going to not make the same mistakes that you made in your study, can read the very, very detailed report. So I should mention that these reports are extremely, and you will read a number of these in this class, and you will write one yourself. These are extremely detailed. They give all of the information about the participants, what were their characteristics, how many of them were there, and what exact methods did you use for running this, for exposing them to a particular treatment or whatever it was that you did. You're going to give all of the details, because the idea is someone should be able to not only check it over and say, yeah, that sounds good, but someone should even be able to try it themselves if they want to. So if I'm skeptical of your study, or I just want to, be able to check the results, the best thing I can do is say, hey, I'm going to do exactly what he did. He did X, Y, and Z, and he got this particular result. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to see if I get the same result. And obviously, if I get the same result, if I have succeeded in replicating, then that strengthens our confidence that what we're seeing is really there. On the other hand, if I fail to replicate, then that obviously is going to decrease our confidence. And there are a lot of examples of very interesting, remarkable, surprising, mind-blowing research findings where a study came out and nobody could believe how, it just blew away our preconceptions of how the world works. And it seemed to be done really well, and it was done by reputable scientists, and it passed through peer review. And then a bunch of different scientists in different areas of the world all independently try to replicate it, and they all fail. Nobody can get the same results again. And that doesn't mean that the original scientists were, being fraudulent. They might have been. But it at least means that something probably went wrong. They screwed something up somewhere, or they just got unlucky, and it looked like there was something happening just by chance, and there wasn't. So replication studies are an absolutely critical part of this process, and they're only possible because we make the scientific method public. We make the reports of what we have done, of our studies, public so that everyone can see them, evaluate them, critique them, and replicate them.